to Talking About Stuff with Tony B. I'm Tony B, I'm your host, and today we're talking about BIA stuff. In particular, as the title suggests, what's in a name? What is the best way to describe or to find a generic descriptor for BIAs and related types of entities like BIDs in the States and DIAs, which we find here, there, and everywhere, BIZs, which I believe are what they're referred to as in Quebec, and when there are probably other terms around the world. So the suggestion is that we come up with a generic term, and for this I'd like to give a hat tip to Kay Matthews, Executive Director of the Ontario BIA Association, or OBIA, who suggested this in a conversation we had a little while back. So taking her up on the challenge and putting it out to the rest of the BIA community to look at coming up with a generic descriptor. Probably a better way to, an easy way to describe it. So having said that, by virtue of an example or a suggestion, given ideas to how best we might address this challenge. So I'm going to suggest 3 or 4 words that should be included. The first word, because this is about businesses, that we include the term business. Now there are other ways to describe this kind of entity. Commercial is another word that comes to mind, but I think business is sort of a friendlier and more recognizable term. Commercial, has different connotations to it, but business is something accessible. So, and it's consistent with other ways, things like BIA and BIDs. So I'm suggesting we can retain the word business. The other term that is to describe the nature of the entity. Notice I've been using the term entity because here I think we have 2 options. So one is the one that people often think the A in BIA stands for, which is association, which I would suggest is inappropriate because it describes a particular type of entity. Whereas I think what we want to use is a term that is more open-ended, and the term that comes to mind is organization. So we have, it's a business organization, and I think that describes it pretty well. Now another aspect of it is that BIAs and BIDs and the like have a very definite geographic consideration, a defined geographic consideration, tightly defined geographic consideration. And for that, I'm once again looking for a good, friendly descriptor. And here again, another hat tip to the Executive Director of West Queen West, the 2nd coolest neighborhood in the world, according to Vogue magazine. And the Executive Director, who thereby, by default, is the 2nd coolest guy in the world, Robert Sisak. So hat tip and a high five for suggesting, as a number of other people in the BIA community have suggested, embracing the term neighborhood. It's one of the things that is missing in the BIA term. It is an important consideration, and so it's something that I think here is an opportunity to embrace that term. And so we have a neighborhood business organization. That's, I think, a good generic description and one that properly reflects what it is we're talking about. Now, there's one other consideration here, and that is that it's not just a neighborhood business organization, but it is something that is undertaken in conjunction with the local or municipal government, and that's an important factor in this. And therefore, I'm going to suggest that we, come to grips or reflect that. And so I'm suggesting the term municipally sanctioned. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but I think it says what it is we want or feel we would need to say with this. So in generic terms, you have an NBO, And in a more formal term, you have an MSNBO, or municipally sanctioned neighborhood business organization. So I'm putting that forward as a place for us to get started, and hopefully you folks out there will have a look at this and say, you know what, that's something that that warrants some additional thought and consideration, and hopefully you can share those additional thoughts and considerations in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have better ideas? What have you? So looking forward to that. Just want to add one other aspect to this, is that to consider a sort of a generic visual device. And once again, Kay had suggested something that has already been used by OBN in one of their conferences, which was to take take the pin drop that we see on Google Maps and other places, and the suggestion, or what was used, was to take 3 pin drops and sort of overlay them so that you create what could be interpreted as a heart. And the reason for that is, I think many of us have sort of looked at what is the nature of a BIA or NBO, and it tends to be the heart of a community, of a neighborhood. It is a term that's often used. So embracing that sort of visual depiction would be appropriate. And I'm just going to suggest that rather than three pin drops forming a heart, 1 pin drop with a heart in the middle of it, as opposed to a circle or what have you. So anybody with graphic inclinations might want to play with that, or play with some other ideas, and add those to the mix as well. So that's it. What's in a name? I'm suggesting an NBO as a way to generically describe a BIA or a BID or a BIZ or a DIA and what have you, and look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next time around.